Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I am here on a solo venture this evening, talking about the Cubs series loss to the Minnesota Twins this weekend. First and foremost, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms of our listeners as well. Hopefully, everybody had a great day celebrating mom. Don't forget, it isn't just today, though, that you got to celebrate mom. You got to celebrate mom every day. And that's going to be the a little bit of the title for today's show because it's an effort only a mother could love. The Cubs win game one of this series only to lose 2 out of 3 to the Minnesota Twins over the course of this weekend. Friday featured a 6-2 win over the Twins for the Cubbies, but then back-to-back 10-plus run losses on Saturday and Sunday, an 11-1 loss on Saturday, a 16-3 loss today here on Mother's Day. And we're going to dive into plenty of the good and the bad here, I think, over the course of the weekend. But one thing that I think initially comes to the mind of, for me right now with this team is, especially the way they're playing, is it's like they're good, but they're not as good as they can be. And that's really what stands out to me right now. And I think a thought that prompted and has sat in my head almost all afternoon now comes from Greg Zumach over at Northside Bound, the prospect guys over there. They do a great job. But he tweeted out some of the Baseball Savant stats about one Brad Boxberger, and this is not a hate Brad Boxberger episode, but I think it's an overarching theme for the Chicago Cubs team right now. And he just said he's like it's time to be done with the Boxberger experiment, right? And it kind of feels like that with a lot of the guys in this roster, unfortunately, because it feels like this front office is trying to hold on, thinking they're going to do something. And I think we've clearly seen so far to this point that the Eric Hosmers of the world, the Brad Boxbergers of the world, the Michael Fulmers of the world, so many of these guys are not giving this team the effort they need, especially when there are capable bodies sitting in this farm system right now waiting for an opportunity. And it's not to say that the farm is going to come around and save the day and this team's going to go on and win 100 games. But what it is going to do is it's going to give a lot of these guys valuable experience in a year that very clearly is not a we're going for it year, right? This is a building block year. And I think that's starting to become very apparent of this team. You know, we've asked here at Cubs on Tap over the course of the last, I don't know how many weeks, really even in the off season, right? What is this team designed to do? What is this year? Is this year a year they punt? Is this year they go for it? What is this year? And I think we're very kind of starting to get an idea of what this year is. It's a building year. And it really feels no more than that because you still have guys on the roster that are not providing the value that this team needs to win ball games. Let's just call it what it is at this point because they are just not getting the job done. And, you know, again, not to say that the weekend was all for naught. There's still some good things that we're going to talk about from this weekend as well. But this team is frustrating. It's frustrating because Juice said it very, very, very appropriately on a show. Maybe about 5 days ago, I believe. I believe it was he and I on that Tuesday, actually, after the Cardinals game when we were back. And he said, this is not the best 26 yet that this Cubs team can put together just from within their own system. And they don't even have to look externally in terms of what they're going to do potentially at a trade deadline, what they're going to do, you know, potentially, you know, even into next off season. This is just looking at what they could bring up right now and what they could do with this ball club as things stand. And that means, you know, potentially filling in roster spots with, you know, guys that you call up. Obviously, the Cubs have started to do that. We've seen that with Matt Mervis. We've seen that with Christopher Morel. We need to, I think, see it more now on the pitching side than anywhere else. I really think that's where it lies in my heart. There are still plenty of bodies on this team. I think this Cubs team really misses Nico Hoerner. I think that is something that is very understated right now. And I've banged the drum all season long. I've said, Nico, we go. And I think you're really starting to see that almost personified, really, with this Cubs team, because Nico's been out and this team has failed to put together consistent back-to-back outings of, it's not even winning and losing at this point. It's just coming like ready to play. The last 2 days, I'm taking this one straight out of Leonard Kenny. It's fucking embarrassing. You got doubled up 10 plus runs both days to a team that's leading statistically one of the worst divisions in baseball. The entire AL East is better than the entire AL Central. And yet here we sit and the Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the Minnesota Twins. Not to say the Twins are a bad ball club. The Cubs ran into 2 of the Twins' best pitchers this weekend, and Sonny Gray and Ryan, as Joey and I discussed on Thursday's show. But I watched enough of yesterday's game, and I watched enough of today's game. They came out flat. And I think a lot of that is missing from a guy like Nico Hoerner in the leadoff spot, not just in the batting order, but I think defensively as well. I think Nico being up the middle and just being that stable presence, he and Ian Happ are starting to really show their worth. And I think there was a lot of Cubs fans that sat there and were like, yeah, we need to lock up Nico. We need to lock up Nico. We need to extend him. But we're I don't want to use the term okay with, but became very dismissive of the idea of keeping Ian Happ around because they're like, well, we got these prospects. We've got Brendan Davis and we've got Kevin Alcantara and we've got, PCA coming in the minors. And it's like, well, you're starting to see that not every prospect works out on the timeline you expect them to, right? Not to say that Brendan Davis can't come up and be a great player, but Cubs fans were expecting to see Brendan Davis last season. And then the back injury derailed him a little bit. He's been pretty good to start this year, but he's not lighting the world on the fire to a point where the Cubs felt the pressure to call him up as they did with guys like Mervis and Morel. You're starting to see some of that come together. Alcantara, I think he's going to be a very good player. However, he's only in high A ball. Like, he's realistically probably not impacting this roster for at minimum another 2 seasons. And then PCA just got to Double A. So I think it just goes to show that when you have something and you know what you're getting, I think we're seeing the best version of Ian Happ finally now too. I think this 3-year extension for Ian really ultimately becomes the prime of his career. Like, I think the Cubs are getting the best bang for their buck keeping him around. And now you're starting to see with a guy like Nico Hoerner. Imagine this team without Ian Happ right now. It would be what, Dansby Swanson and the boys effectively over the last 5 days because Nico's been hurt. I think that is really what this team is missing, truthfully, right now, is a guy like Nico Hoerner and just a lack of a complete 1 through 9 in terms of getting the job done, wins and losses. But let's talk about some of the good, because I don't want to sit on here for the full 25, 30, 35 minutes, however long I'm on here tonight, just talking about bad, because this team's not in a bad spot. Yes, they lost today. It is what it is. But despite the loss, this team is only 2 games below 500. They still have an opportunity to turn things around and hit the gas. This team has still not played its best baseball, even as the roster is constructed right now. So who's to say that this team doesn't turn it around and go on a little bit of a hot streak? And for this team, I'm not saying they're going to rattle off 12 straight wins and all of a sudden they're going to be among the best in baseball record-wise. But a stretch of 7 out of 10, or a stretch of 8 out of 10 is very realistic for this Cubs team. I don't think that's out of the question by any means. And in the way the NL Central's been playing, this team can do that and they can turn that around. So I don't think it's time for panic yet. But I think if nothing else, from the last 2 games especially, this team needs to come out with more energy to start the week against the Astros on Monday. And if they don't, the Astros aren't fantastic on paper right now. They're only 2 games above 500. They're 21-19, reciprocal record of what the Cubs are. But they are winners. They know how to get the job done. I got to see this team in person on Friday night over on the south side. I got to watch Yordan Alvarez crush a baseball 10 stories into the air and it still leave the yard. That's a good baseball team. Don't be fooled by the fact they're only 2 games above 500. Good baseball team. If this Cubs team does not come showing up ready to play for the next 3 games, that off day is going to taste really sour on on Thursday, because they are going to probably be sulking at minimum over a series loss, if not being swept. So that to me right now is where the Cubs need to go. But like I said, let's talk a little bit about the good because there was some good that came out of this series. I think Friday's game in general was great, right? You go into the ninth inning, you have a 3-2 lead, and you pile it on when the Twins are, backs against the wall. I think that is massive because you see so often, a team starts to build a little momentum toward the end of a game and has an opportunity to come back late. And the Cubs stepped on their throat in the top of that ninth inning and put it away. 6-2, beautiful outing. Minnesota struck first on Friday. I saw, not calling anybody out, but I saw somebody today on Twitter respond like, "Oh, well, Minnesota scored first on Friday too." Yeah, well, today was much different outcome than it was on Friday. But you're down 2-0. They come back. Seiya Suzuki gets the big, sac fly. Mervis tied it up with the double. Great to see Mervis getting big hits and big moments like that. Yan Gomes is just having an offensive season that befuddles me. Not for a bad thing. I'm not upset about it, obviously, but the guy is having himself an absolute year offensively compared to his norms. And then obviously the big bomb by Morel, as well as the sack fly by Belly, capped that one off and got the job done. So Friday's game was great. That's what we needed to see, right? That's what I was hoping we would see more of, especially Saturday. I think was the one day for this Cubs team where I was like, if they're going to lose, it's going to be Saturday. If they're going to win 2 of 3, because we've had this kind of up and down version of Hayden Wesneski all season long. We don't know what we're going to get with him on a night-to-night basis. And it's not saying that he's a bad pitcher. I just think he's got a lot of things he still needs to work on. I think, he came out and he was hot in spring training and he absolutely won the fifth starter battle. But I would make the argument that if there was a healthy Kyle Hendricks on this roster, Hayden would have been in AAA. I think he would have been out in Iowa. I think he would have been working with guys like Ben Brown now and other guys in that starting rotation, because I think there's still some things the Cubs want to see him develop. And that's not a bad thing. Again, this Cubs front office, in terms of what they do with their pitchers, it's all about development. And I think that's been something that's been astronomically important for this Cubs, pitching staff, really, is that these guys have the tools and they have the ability and they have the thought process to keep going, right? Ooh, pardon me. Terrible allergy day today, folks. I don't know if you guys didn't know. Rain in this up and down weather in the city of Chicago is gross. It's atrocious. It's not fun. Nonetheless, let's get back to the Cubs. This front office has the infrastructure for guys to work on things and tinker and get better from a pitching perspective, especially these young guys. I think you're seeing it a little bit with guys like Ben Brown, right? I think you're seeing it with guys like Cade Horton and even Jackson Ferris at the lowest levels for this Cubs, organization in terms of pitching. I think once Hendricks is back, I think Wesneski goes to Iowa. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I don't think he should be a bad thing for Wesneski. I don't think it should be a bad thing for Cubs fans. He needs to keep growing. And you would love to see him do that growing in Iowa, where he's probably going to get picked up by run support a little more, because that Iowa Cubs team right now is having a fantastic start to the season, even without Morel and Mervis in their everyday lineup. I think he would benefit from that. And he's going to have more probably one-on-one time instructionally to work on things than he would at the major league level, where it does matter a little more about wins and losses. And they are actively trying to win games on a day-to-day basis. But hard day for Wesneski. The 7 earned runs. It was nice to see him at least go 5. They didn't have to totally burn through the bullpen on Saturday as much as they did today, because, Stroh had a bad day. It finally happened. We were waiting for a really bad Marcus Stroman start, and it finally happened. Every pitcher is going to have a bad start. The fact that Stroh and Steele have had the starts of their season that they have without really battling any major adversity is fantastic. It really is a testament to how good those guys are. But baseball is weird like that. Everybody's going to have a bad game, a bad start, a bad outing. And I think we're starting to see some of that with just today with Marcus Stroman. I think that's what we saw on the bump. He was quoted after the game. He knows what he needs to work on to fix it going into his next start. That's not a guy I'm worried about bouncing back from a bad start. So I think from that perspective for the Cubs, it was what it was. I think it was the fact that the games continued to get away from them, right? The bullpen didn't show up. And that goes back to the point I made earlier in the show, to Greg Zumach's point, right? Boxberger giving up 3 earned in 2/3 of an inning is not getting the job done. He has not looked like the same pitcher that he was over the last couple of seasons. Fulmer got the 1 out on a strikeout, great, but still a very small sample size. Today, Fulmer gives up 3 earned. Mastrobuoni gives up 4 because he has to come in relief at that point. Mayweather's getting tattooed. Like, if the Cubs told me tomorrow that Mayweather, Boxberger, and Fulmer are off the roster, cool. They're not here for the long run. You have arms in Iowa that I think are worth a shot. Guys like Jeremiah Estrada for one, right? We still haven't seen guys like Brendan Little get a look. There is a lot of guys down in Iowa that are good pitchers. Cam Sanders has been very good. And they're not all perfect. I'm not going to say these guys are all going to come up and be electrifying relievers, but they can't be any worse than what you have now. And at least those guys get valuable experience to build for the future. Brad Boxberger is probably not here after this season. Let's be real. Michael Fulmer, same thing. And even Julian Merriweather. I think they liked the upside of Merriweather because of his stuff. And they thought they could fix him by putting him through the pitch lab, but it just hasn't worked out, right? It hasn't worked out. So they need to take care of business there. But good things from this series. I keep saying that we need to get to the good, and then I keep finding something bad to bitch about. Nonetheless, there's a few notable things. One, again, I think we need to appreciate Ian Happ. Why do I say that? Well, his numbers are insane. Even after 2 kind of bad days by Ian Happ standards. On Saturday, he was officially 1 for 3. He did still have those 2 walks because the guy is just an on-base machine. And then today he was 0 for 4. Today, by far, his worst day of the series. He actually had a very good day on Friday. Again, contributing to why I say he's important. He goes 3 for 5 in that 3-hole. That's big. That's huge. Even after the bad game on Sunday, the guy is still hitting 303 and has an 890 OPS. That OPS has routinely been in the 9s most of the season. It fluctuates up and down, obviously. But, I mean, he just continued to have another great series. Incredibly good to see. Ian Happ showing this team, hey, you paying me what you paid me over the next 3 years after this one, $20+ million, worth it. Absolutely worth it. He's continuing to show he's that player. The power hasn't been there necessarily yet, but everything else is there for Ian, and that's been encouraging from a Cubs perspective. There's also no player that needed a series like this one more than Seiya Suzuki. Good to see what we saw to Seiya in this entire series. Only 1 for 4 on Friday, but that 1 hit, helps that average creep up a little more. And he still drove in a run with the sac fly, in a big run at that. Then on Saturday, 1 for 2 with 2 walks. Seems like Seiya's getting back into his groove in terms of, just working his walks, working good at bats, etc. And then on Sunday, 1 hit, drives in a run. He raised his OPS in this series by about 48 points. That's fantastic. Went from 711 coming into Friday OPS to a 759 player leaving this series. That's huge. That is absolutely massive for a guy like Suzuki, and he even raised his average about 5 points in this series as well. Now hitting, or 4 points, pardon me, now hitting 267 coming out of this series. 100% needed that. But the real guy that I'm most excited about, and the shining, overarching bright spot for this Cubs team right now and for this series, is Christopher Morel. This guy looks like a reason alone right now with them playing kind of down baseball to watch the Cubs. Because sure, he's not going to be an on-base machine from a walking perspective. Yes, he's gotten better with the walk rate, still has a very high K rate. However, you see that on a day-to-day basis, and then you get to see the cool stuff of why he strucks out a lot, is because he sends balls opposite field into the right center field, into the second deck at target field, and then today launches one into the third deck That ball went 461 feet in a quote unquote dead ball era. Imagine Christopher Morel playing with the juice baseballs back in 2019. Whoa, every ball that kid would hit would be leaving the ballpark. He looks like a different ball player because he got to come up last year. He got to work in the majors. He got to see how pros train and get stronger and work on things. And you could tell he took that seriously into the off season and has come out on the other side as a different ball player. He looked good last year. He showed his moments of brilliance. And it's a small sample size at the major league level right now, but he was tearing the cover off of AAA pitching. Like we all as Cubs fans were pumped about Mervis, right? He was a 900 plus OPS player down in AAA Iowa. He looked great, was driving in runs. His walk rate was, he had as many walks pretty much as he had strikeouts. Christopher Morel, though, his numbers were stupid. He has been unreal. Just so much fun to watch, too, right? I mean, Cubs fans fell in love with this guy last year. Hell, I know I did. There's a number 5 jersey sitting upstairs right now. It's the one you've seen me wear a lot on the show this season. Christopher Morel has encaptured Cubs fans. This season feels like a season now where if he continues to be a routine energy boost to this lineup on a day-to-day basis, he's starting to work his way into conversation of being a foundational piece on this team, in my opinion. Because you see the power. It is very clearly there. He has the multi-positional versatility that really nobody else on this roster has in terms of all 3 outfield spots and, 3 of the 4 infield spots. And if you really probably had to in a pinch, you probably could teach him how to play first base. They taught Scotty Hatteberg, you can teach him. All right. But that just, he's the type of energy this team needs. You combine that with a guy like Nico, who just continually sets the tone atop the Cubs lineup every day once he's healthy, which, by the way, that IL stint is retroactive to May 9th, which is very, very encouraging because that means at the end of this week, he can come off the IL. So hopefully he's healthy. It allowed them to bring up Miles Mastrobuoni, who did a sensational job in relief today, giving up 4 runs. Please read through the sarcasm, I promise you. But he will be welcome back. And I think him combined with Morel and the rest of this lineup starting to figure it out, right? Dansby's had a weird kind of up and down. Belly has continued overall to be very good. We've already mentioned Ian Happ. If Seiya Suzuki can get something going a little bit, and then they can just figure out what the rest of this roster is, right? Because we know you got Yan Gomes behind the plate. This Cubs team is really good. The numbers show it. They're really good when Yan Gomes is playing. But does Tucker Barnhart eventually get moved on in favor of a guy like Miguel Amaya, who got rave reviews and maybe is a little more ready than people thought he was? When does that happen, right? Obviously, he's going to go down to Iowa now. He's going to get some work in every day as the number 1 catcher in Iowa, or at least you would hope. Could be huge at some point coming back up off the bench as your 2 catcher. Same goes for the first base position, right? We've seen Mervis more routinely at first every day defensively, which I think is super important. But if that's the case, Eric Hosmer does not need to be here. That was, in my opinion, that was the only reason to keep him, was because of the glove, because of his ability defensively over first base. That way you could keep a guy like Trey Mancini and just let him be a professional hitter and then worry about splitting defensive duties between Mervis and Hosmer. If it's not at all going to be Hosmer, that he doesn't need to be here. And then, Madrigal's been good. He's been fine. He's not perfect, but he's been fine. That lineup looks much better than if Eric Hosmer's not on it and eventually Barnhart moves on. And you can just make the effort. Move Hosmer on when Nico is promoted. Eventually, Amaya takes over potentially for Barnhart, and let that team roll. It's not a bad squad at all. That team looks really good. Patty Wise has still been hitting. There's a lot to like about this Cubs team. They're going through a little bit of a cold streak. They put back-to-back wins together last week. That's cool and tough. Just 2 really embarrassing losses, though, over the weekend. But this team has those guys in there that are going to say, guys, look, forget about the Minnesota series. Forget about it. They're the Twins. They're in the AL. We don't give a shit about them. We're not going to see them, routinely. Let's go beat up on a really good Astros team. Let's get that confidence back up. Reward yourself with an off day on Thursday. And then you got 3 in Philly before yet another off day on that Monday. And then you're back home for 9 games. Then you got 3 with the Mets. You got 3 with the Reds, finally, for the first time this season. And then you got 3 with the AL East best Tampa Bay Rays. They need to start playing some good ball. And, the veterans on this team need to help these guys turn it around. So, like I said, not all bad. It wasn't all bad. The last 2 days were rough, truthfully. But again, Christopher Morel continues to do good things. We saw Mervis maybe get a little bit of confidence back in his step with the big RBI on Friday. Had 2 hits in the loss on Sunday as well. Seiya Suzuki gets some that well-needed ability. Ian Happ continues to be good. Christopher Morel just continues to be a spark plug. The starters are going to get back together. Drew Smyly was really good on Friday. 6 really good innings of two-run ball. He's continuing to get the job done. Alzolay looked good in 2 innings of work. It's not all bad, folks. It is not all bad. And hopefully this Cubs team rebounds, bounces back, and gets some good pitching coming up in this Houston series, because they are 100% going to need it. Joey in the comments, Ron with a solo show to get the Cubs back on track. We're trying, buddy. We're trying. That's all we're trying to do here. And Jeremiah, I feel you. He said this right at the outright when we got started here. He said, I'm going to sit this one out. Understandable. Rough day. Again, I hope everybody got to spend time with their moms, or at least gave mom a call today and got to chat with her. But again, like I said at the top of the show, don't let that be just one day of the year. Let that be every day of the year. And also, Bob, go Cubs. Hey, thanks, Bob. Appreciate you jumping in the comments. So let's talk a little bit about the upcoming series as our new schedule. I think a lot of our Cubs on Tap followers, and most of you guys also tend to follow our friends over at Dingers. So you guys know our schedule now. Dingers runs every Monday night at 8 o'clock Central Time, or right around that time. We'll be back with you guys on Tuesday. So we're going to talk about the next 2 games of this Astro series coming up. We'll be back with you after the second game of the series, and then we'll be back with you after Wednesday's game as well, before leading into the weekend. We'll probably do a similar cadence, assuming things don't go south. We might have a show for you on Thursday, another off-day show. But we'll definitely be back with you Tuesday, Wednesday, and then depending on how Friday goes, hopefully we, maybe can get a show in. If not, the panelists will be back a week from tonight, recapping that Philadelphia series next weekend. So let's talk a little bit about the first 2 against the Astros. On Monday, May 15th, Cubs travel to Houston. It's a 7:10 Central start, so pretty standard start time. In terms of Cubs games, it will be Jameson Taillon on the bump for the Cubbies tomorrow. He will compete against Framber Valdez, arguably Houston's ace, really at this point. 2.38 ERA. He's been really good. Don't be fooled by the 3-4 record coming into this one. He has been sensational for the Stros. And then Tuesday's game, same start time. It is our boy, friend of the program, Justin Steele on the bump, and it will be Christian Javier, who has been pretty good as well. 3.47 ERA and a 3-1 record coming in this one for the Stros. Monday's game will be on Marquee Sports Network. Fun fact about Tuesday's game, it'll also be broadcast nationally on TBS, as well as Marquee Sports Network for those in the Chicagoland area. So what are we expecting from the Cubs coming into the next couple of days? Jameson Taillon needs to have the best start of his season. We, as a collective unit at Cubs on Tap here, have discussed the idea that he might not be fully healthy, and I am in complete agreement and support of that notion. I don't believe Taillon is truthfully healthy yet. And again, there's also some weird curse lately for Cubs starters signing with the team in their first year not going well, unless your name is John Lester. So we'll see what happens there. But Taillon, if he has the best start of his season tomorrow, that's going to be huge for the Cubs alone. And then hopefully the run support is there. The bats can turn it around a little bit. There's quite a few days still before this team gets that, homegrown cooking and comes back to Wrigley. So they got to find a way to get the team spirit and morale up on the road and get the job done. And then Tuesday, I'm looking for another patent Justin Steele start. And that might be just what the doctor ordered right now for this Cubs team, especially against a really good team in Houston. I think that's the perfect timing for Steele to be on the bump. And then you get Drew Smiley on Wednesday again. So, arguably, two of your three most consistent pitchers this season are pitching in this Houston series. Cubs need to take advantage of that. Need to get the good outings out of those guys. Need to get a good outing out of Tyone as well. Again, he's the $17 million man. He's really going to need to start showing up here. Also, Kyle Hendricks had a pretty nice day, I believe, as well with the Iowa Cubs. I'm actually just pulling up his official stats right now. So I'll continue to talk in circles until I can do that here. Also, fun fact, very, very good news too. Miguel Amaya was 4 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI and a run scored. He was the Iowa Cubs player of the game today. They did lose, however, unfortunately 6-2 to the Toledo Mud Hens. But again, Miguel Amaya getting the job done. Things you'll love to see thus far. Was not able to get those numbers just yet, so bear with me here. But Kyle Hendricks coming back. There's a world. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but there's a world where he takes Tyone spot and Tyone goes on the IL if he's truly not healthy, or he's coming back and probably getting reinserted for Wesneski. So Tyone needs to put it together. Today, officially, he was taken out after 79 pitches. He went 5+ officially today. He made it into the 6th, but gave up a pair of hits to start the 6th, so they removed him from the game. But 5 innings, 6 hits, just 2 earned runs, 4 Ks, 2 walks out of the professor. So he's starting to get up there. His ERA in his last 2 starts is a 180, more like the Kyle Hendricks that we know. And officially over those last 2 starts, 10 innings pitched, 6 hits, 1 earned, 8 Ks. Hold on. Now I'm all confused. Oh, yeah, because he gave a run up in the 6th. That's why. So it was the 2 earned. Nonetheless, in the 10 innings pitch, he's been really good. So expect to see him back soon, but the reason for that is Tyone needs to put it together, because if they start getting what Tyone is out of Tyone, Hendricks comes back, Smiley's been pretty consistent, and you're getting what you're getting out of Stroh and Steele, despite today, for Stroh, that pitching staff looks ready to deal. So Tyone, get a good one on Monday, follow that up with a great Steele start on Tuesday, and I hope whoever it is here at Cubs on Tap that's talking after Tuesday's game is going to be talking about a lot of good things, maybe a series victory and a potential chance for a sweep over the Stros. That's ideal situation, and it would be the hell of a way for this Cubs team to bounce back after 2 really embarrassing losses this weekend. So before I get out of here, I am going to depart with my final thought, and my final thought is give us the best 26. I want this Cubs team to be at its very best of what it can be right now. Whether that's certain players that are on the bench from a bat standpoint, certain guys in the bullpen that are just no longer getting the jobs done, maybe in the rotation once Hendricks is healthy. If it means a guy like Wesneski needing to sit down and go to Iowa for a little bit, so be it. Give us the best 26, because the best 26 of what this Cubs team can be in 2023 is still going to be pretty damn good. And they can have a chance to, at minimum, make noise this season. Does that mean they're going to go on a hot run and win the World Series? Probably not. Very unlikely. But they can at least build some really, really good momentum going into 2024, when this team will be ready to hit the gas full pedal and do some really good things. So that is my final thought. Give us the best 26, and let's see what this Cubs team actually is, and just wash the bad taste of these last 2 games, especially out of the collective Cubs fan base's mouths, because they're not fun. They certainly are not fun. It's not fun to see your team lose by more than 10 runs on back-to-back days. So, but it is what it is, and hopefully they'll rebound in a 3-game set against the Stros before again. At this point, it feels like every off day is a well-needed day, but a well-needed off day come Thursday between that Philly series and that Houston series. Before I get out of here, everybody, Cubs on Tap, one of 2 official Cubs podcasts of the On Tap Sports Network covering the Chicago Cubs. We follow our friends over at Dingers, at Dinger Cubs on Twitter and Instagram. All the boys do a great job. Mitch, Jake, Kevin, Jeff, A lot of fun to watch them. They'll be live at 8 o'clock on Monday night. Be sure to tune in with them on the YouTube over here for On Tap Sportsnet, as well as the Twitter page, whether it's at Dingers or on the On Tap Sportsnet Twitter page as well. Follow us here at Cubs on Tap. We're at Cubbies on Tap, Cubis on Twitter and Instagram as well. I am at Loose on Tap. All my other co-hosts at Juice on Tap, at Joey Knows Nothing, at Teddy Freddy 270, at Nick_on Tap. Be sure to be following all of them as well. Follow our prospect guy at Bulls Guy Rob as well. He's ready, and I know he's pumped to dive deeper into the minor leagues as the season continues to roll on. You know the drill. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks. We got it all. Bears show last week. A lot of fun. Got to talk to Kent, who is the creator of the Raz scores. So anybody that followed our Bears coverage probably heard that term quite a bit. It was a very fun conversation between myself, Quentin, and Kent. So be sure to check that one out. Blackhawks have a lot to talk about over at Four Feathers. You can hear me over there as well. And our Bulls guys do a great job as well. They were just back in action not too long ago on the mics. So be sure to follow all those. And Cubs fans, we think we're miserable. Be sure to send your other friends here in Chicago of the other Chicago sports team over to our friends that cover that other Chicago sports team, because they are not doing so hot. But send your White Sox friends to our friends over at Sox on Tap, who do a great job covering the White Sox. Probably the best thing, truthfully, associated with the White Sox right now is the Sox on Tap coverage of the team, because everything else is just not good. So once again, ontapsportsnet.com, at OnTap Sportsnet on social media, the OnTap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. 3 big games coming up with Houston. Forget about these Minnesota Twins losses, especially the last 2 days. We want to see more of Friday, less of Saturday and Sunday for this Cubs team going forward. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day to your moms, for all of those that were able to listen or watch along with me. I hope everybody had a great special celebration of those important ladies in your life, whether they're here with you or not. So just be sure to appreciate them and everything that they do. And from myself, I'll get out of here the only way to know how it comes on tap. Happy Mother's Day. Fuck the Cardinals. And let's go Cubbies.